So let me start with a very brief introduction. Shruti said it's very late to me here, but I guess it is also late in India. Not much of difference. It's like 2.5 hours. Uh, so my introduction basically is I come with 20 years of IT experience. Obviously started my career in India, then worked in IT services companies, then moved to Singapore in 2005. Started working with investment banks, primarily on I would say agile practices, DevOps tools, and those are the key focus areas which I was working. So then I came out, started doing my own consulting in 2011-12, and since then it's been on the journeys around mostly consulting and training. So I've provided a lot of trainings to Fortune 500 investment banks and retail banks, and also to government organizations here in Singapore on multiple areas. Like one of the area is agile, definitely. The other area is areas like robotic process automation. So that's a brief about myself. Now coming to the topic itself, right? So what I will be trying to do in the next 30-40 minutes is take you through some of the benefits of following agile practices as an individual and as an organization and as a team. I will not deep dive into any of the topics because the area itself is very vast, right? Obviously, you cannot cover it in 30 to 40 minutes time, but this can present you with a very good overview, and it can also help you as an organization or as an individual, the areas that you can really upskill yourself, right? I also appreciate that some of the people who have joined the webinar here, they are probably aware of some of these things. If you want to share something, you can obviously share. I will take a pass on all important topics, right, and then see if you have any questions. Let us make it more interactive and more of a conversation than really somebody is providing a training or kind of preach something, right? So with that, I'll just jump into the agenda itself today, right? As you see, I don't have any PowerPoint presentations. As agile means, right, wherever we want, we have to adapt to the change that is available, and we should also reduce the efforts that we put unnecessarily on many things. So the idea of this webinar is just to talk with you and not to prepare any exhaustive presentation, which could have taken me at least 2 to 3 hours to prepare. But the whole points which I have put in just took me 30 minutes, right? So I have obviously saved 2.5 hours on this, which effectively means if you look at the organization level, you can save a lot of time, right? So some of the agenda that we have, I've used a tool called a Mural, which you can also try, which is very popular now in the agile world, right? So I have to move around here and there on my screen. It's like moving through the slides, but we are in the same screen. So the agenda here we have is agile benefits, some key agile principles. Again, we will not deep dive there. What are the agile principles? What team models are available at the team level? What is the role of agile in technology? What is an agile mindset? If you want to build an agile mindset in your organization, or you yourself want to become very agile, how your mindset should be, right? Then agile for enterprises. How should agile is adopted? How you can adopt agile in an enterprise? And some transformation approach for the organization. Again, a very higher level overview of all the topics. I am also running another webinar after a month here, primarily focused on DevOps. So I'm sure that some of you will be interested in that also. Now, I also want to say Agile is not something which is very specific to the technology teams, right? I see Agile is being now adopted in a lot of business areas as well, right? Because they see benefits in doing things faster, right? So I'll probably go here. These are the benefits that we are going to talk about today. These are the agile benefits, right? So I can just take you here, the agile benefits. Sorry. All right. So this is our first topic. The topic itself is primarily what do you achieve? That is the most important thing. Okay, I'm doing all these things, right? I'm following so many models, right? But what do you really achieve out of it, right? First is you focus on your business value. Okay, what is the value that you are creating for your customers? That is the most important thing. When I say business value, it is not about revenue or it is not about sales. They are all byproducts of the value that you create to the customers, right? Second is speed of execution. When you follow agile practices, you tend to move very faster. There is enough theory and practical data available in the market. Just going back into the history, agile is around for almost, it's there for around 20 years. But if you put it in practice, the adoption is there in the industry for at least last 12 years, right? If your organization or yourself has not adopted it in the technology space, then it probably means you are already late in the curve. But better late than never, right? So when you follow agile practices, your speed of execution increases. Let's take an example of a mobile phone. Instead of releasing one mobile phone model for 2 years, once in 2 years, how about delivering a mobile phone model in 6 months' time, right? Which means that you have accelerated time to the market. Customers will love the change. If you don't do it, what happens? You look into the other way of things, right? If you don't really, for example, 3 years, I am not giving away any new mobile models. What will happen? Primarily, all your end customers will go to the other people who are in the market, who are actively selling. So accelerated time to market is considerably improved when you follow agile practices. Early and predictable delivery, right? You can see in some of the models, right, which we use, which we are going to discuss later, right? Especially in the technology sector, right? We are talking about delivering something every month, shipping something to the customer every month in the IT space, right? You can always see now, I know many of you would have used Netflix, Amazon, um, Apple. You can see, especially on the software side of things, application side of things, you can see so many changes that are happening in their platform within a week's time, or multiple changes even in a day. Now, how are they able to achieve that? Where in some organizations where I have worked previously, right, when we use a waterfall model to move something to live, to give something to the customers, I may take 6 months, I may take a year, right? But now you can deliver something very quickly within a month, or even multiple times in a day, depending on the maturity where you are in the agile transformation, right? Not all organizations, many may ask, like, what if I start today? We face the same challenge day in, day out. When I do consulting assignments, right? For example, I consult very large banks. We often are challenged within 3 months, what value you created, right? How do we go about it? We don't see any value, right? Uh, some of these things are actually seen over a period of time and not really in a month time, right? When the teams becomes really agile, when your technology becomes really agile, then you can see the value getting delivered very, very fast. Uh, Better stakeholder engagement and transparency. That is another key important benefit. you are doing a tech project. Obviously, I come from the IT background, technology background, right? So what we usually do is go and collect requirements from a customer for 15, 20 days, a month, right? And after that, we go back. We start doing our own design, we start doing our own coding, and we take another 2, 3 months. But till that time, customer will never know what you are doing, right? So when you start following some of the agile models, you will have interaction with all the stakeholders, right? On daily basis, or if not, at least on fortnightly basis, right? So stakeholder engagement and transparency is improved tremendously. The another point which I'm talking about is team dynamics and collaboration, right? Team dynamics and collaboration. You can see for yourselves that the team, once they have started adopting an agile model, see, they actually collaborate really well, depending on the model you use. Every morning they come, they have a stand-up meeting. For example, they share the risk. They say like, what I achieved yesterday, what I'm going to do today, and what are my problems, right? When you start doing that every day, what really happens is that the entire team members start communicating and collaborating with them in a much faster way. When we start collaborating and when the whole team dynamics improves, obviously it promotes the culture, and also it aids to innovation. Innovation is the key thing now in the market, right? Everybody is good at what they are doing currently. Everyone is good at that. Okay. But what about the things that we really want to innovate? Innovation doesn't mean it has to be groundbreaking, right? Tomorrow I'm going to come out with what Steve Jobs did, come out with iPod or iPhone. Nothing like that. Innovation is all about improving. It can be even improving your existing product. It can be a very good feature. For example, adding an AI functionality into your product, right? Artificial intelligence functionality, or even automating some of the repetitive tasks that you are doing, right? All those things will definitely improve. And also aids in the last part is continuous improvement. Because you work very closely with your team, collaborate well with your team, there is a constant feedback that comes through this. Everybody starts feeding back to the system. When everybody starts feeding back into the system and processes and people and mindset, you obviously improve on daily basis. Actually, the improvement is something which you can see even on daily basis. These are some of the key agile benefits, right? Now they are also embedded in other words. Before I jump on to other topics, I'll just take a pause here and then see if anyone has got any questions. I don't know if you're all muted. I'm not very sure about it, but if you're not, feel free to shoot any questions. I see 71 attendees. So anyone has got any questions? Shruti, are you there? Okay. I don't see any questions. I'll just.
Hi, Ganesh. Yes, I'm here. I don't see any questions right now. I think we can expect questions towards the end of the conversation.
Okay, no problem. So I'll just move ahead. Okay, so those are some of the benefits of the agile. Now I'll go to the next topic, which is agile principles. Again, I will not do a very deep dive. The agile principles, primarily history goes on like this, right? A group of 15 plus software engineers, they got together towards the end of last millennium. They put their heads together, brainstormed, and then decided how we can do things much more faster, how we can improve customer satisfaction. And then they came out with around 12 agile principles. So I will just take you there, and then we can talk about it. Just give me some time while I organize my so this is the one that we are going to talk about today. Now the next topic is about agile principles. So I'll just slightly move my screen towards my right so that it is all well seen. Okay, I hope you all see the 12 agile principles, right? Obviously, the first one is customer satisfaction. Again, we are not focusing on any business revenues or anything. Through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. I hope most of you around here are either you want to get into the IT industry or you want to upskill yourself in the industry, right? The most important thing is that how you can deliver value much early in the cycle. Like I say, for example, how about delivering something to the customer every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, rather than doing it after 6 months or 1 year? So these principles are the foundations of the whole practices that Agile forms, right? You can see everything that we discuss will be mapped back to this 12 principles, right? The second one people thought is that most important is welcome changing requirements even late in the development life cycle, right? So this is why we should have that. Primarily, why we should have that as one of the principles is this. I have worked on a lot of fixed contracts throughout my career where you say like, okay, this project is going to take 4 months and this is the scope of the project and it is going to be 100K USD, right? Now the problem happens is once you put your scope, once you put your timeline, and once you associate a cost with that, instead of developing a software, right, most of the times in my own capacity as a project manager earlier, we end up arguing with the customers more. Oh, this is not part of the scope. I won't do this. If I want to do this, you pay me more, right? Increase it by another 5K, right? Now, that is exactly a cause of concern because we are not really developing software here. What we are actually trying to do is kind of getting more business from the customer or keep fighting with the customer rather than really focusing on getting the job done. So they thought requirements can change at any given point of time, right? Even at the late, even at the end of. So the only thing which I need to worry about is how do I include that requirement? When am I going to do it? That is a prioritization part, but I'm never going to say no to my customer, right? Because they thought this is an area of concern, right? The third one of obviously is very straightforward. Deliver working software. The most important thing word here is working software, right? So when I coach teams on Agile, one of the things I often observe is that the teams which are at a very low maturity level, right? So if you want to say a scale of 0 to 10, I'm coaching a team which is at a level rate 2, right? What happens usually is they develop everything, they use all models, but they don't really send it to the customer. Now, end of the day, the customer is still going to get it late. I'm not saying it is bad. You are at least going one step forward in the right direction, but that is not enough. But when I say a team with an agile rating of around 8 or 9, which means that they are not only delivering internally, but they are ensuring that you are delivering something to the customer very often, right? So that is the fundamental. The fourth point is business and developers must work together daily throughout the project, which I already believe I mentioned in the AgileBenefits, right? If you see most of the organizations where I worked, We have a business team, say a marketing or sales team, or a customer service team, or in a bank we call it as a front office team, back office team, middle office teams, right? Um, but the technology is at the backbone, right? So business and IT are there. I had myself been part of many projects where earlier, not in this decade, once after I became an agile coach, one of my primary role is to ensure that they work very closely on daily basis, right? But before that, I've seen that was not happening, right? And there was also this that is still there. I'm not saying many of the things are not there, right? Um, People are really scared what business will say. People are very concerned about what the business teams will say. But I think that should not be the way. That way will change when you start working, right? When you start working with the businesses on daily basis. Now, what we are trying to achieve, you have to look at it from the organization level, not just between two different teams. Business is a team and IT is a team. But if I look at it from the organization perspective, you both are same, right? Basically, you both work together, collaborate together to create value for the customers, rather than creating an image that IT is obviously worried about what business will say. So when you start collaborating, I think that worry will go, right? Um, the point here is build projects around motivated individuals, right? So end of the day, organization consists of teams. Teams consist of teams. Teams consist of sub-teams, and sub-teams consist of individuals, right? When you are talking about a IT organization, it boils down to developers, right? Software developers. They play the central role in creating the application. Now they should be motivated. Okay, so when they are motivated, there is clear, ample proof that motivated individuals build better products. I'm not even talking about software products. It could be any product. So it is very important that how do you motivate your individuals? How can you motivate your individuals is another topic which I will cover it in Agile Mindset. But please take a note of it. Motivated individuals are very important. This point is about face-to-face conversation, right? Um, Wherever applicable, currently we are all working remotely, right? And then even before this scenario, there used to be teams that are located in different locations. For example, when I used to work with banks, I think many of you would have experienced that in India also, right? We do a lot of work for US customers, UK customers. So when I work in banks, I at least worked with UK teams. I had also worked with India teams, and then a New York team, right? So the teams are at 3 different locations. Now you can challenge me how I can have face-to-face conversation, right? One way is definitely have your video on, right? So I see that as one of the cultural thing also, right? Wherever you could not have uh, meet in person, and we are doing video conferencing, right? Most important thing is show your face, right? Because that face actually, the body language can send a lot of signals to the other person. So wherever possible, use video conferences, right? Working software is the primary measure of progress. What do you mean by that? Uh, the very reason they have put in is that in good old times, say I entered the industry in 1998. 97, I started doing some IT courses, but when I actually started working in project teams, it was 1998, right? So it's been like a 22 years of journey in IT, right? Um, the very reason why they put it is we spend a lot of time in documents. Okay, we spend a lot of time in preparing documents, that, this, meetings. Okay, fine, you do all those things. But I don't care. What I really care is how much of the product you have built. Is your product is complete 30%? Is your product is complete 60%? So one main reason it is there is, apart from regulatory and compliance reasons, don't spend too much time on writing software documents. Instead, focus that energy on more on actual development. That doesn't really mean you shouldn't do at all, right? I mean, it has to be kept very, very, very lean, right? This point is very important. That is what will take us to the technology aspects of Agile. Now, when I work as Agile coach, right, many people think there is a myth. When you're a proper Agile coach in the technology space, and I'm coaching a team, the most important thing is that first I know technology, right? Have seen through my own experiences, people not coming from the technology background. For example, people don't understand what is requirements, design, coding, nuances of coding. It is not that okay, Java is a programming language, right? It's not like that. Have you written a code in Java, right? Especially when you coach, right? Because Agile is not just about adopting a model. I know for example, I am not certified in any Agile, uh, for example, regular certifications like Scrum, Kanban, coaching, nothing. Because I fundamentally believed, I'm not saying that, others also should feel that way, or some few who have got certified are not good. But what I'm trying to, message I'm trying to send is that if it is for the technology team, and if you want to coach a technology team, right, it is very, very important that you understand technology end to end to end, right? So that goes back. So if I'm an Agile coach and I'm talking about 12 Agile principles, how good an Agile coach I will be if I don't understand the technical excellence and good design, right? So this aspect is about that. You cannot create a great product if you are running it on a lousy infrastructure, right? You cannot create a great product which cannot really scale up to the customers, right? If you don't have a good design, be it a user interface design, or be it a database design, or be it as an infrastructure design, right? If you don't have a good design, then your product is not going to be agile, right? So focus on technical excellence is very important. I can give you a very simple example, that adoption to cloud, something that everybody knows and relate to, right? There are obviously many other things, right? Adoption to cloud is very, very important, when you actually move on a agile direction, right? At this point, the simplicity, we all know, it's called as, in other words, removing things that you shouldn't be doing, you are wasting your time on, right? Now I'll be very brutal in my comments on this. When I say I was coaching a team in one of the banks, right? At least I said what I had to say. For example, resources lying idle and not doing anything is a burden to the team, right? When I say resources, it can be a hardware resource, because when you have a hardware resource, think about it from the enterprise perspective. Somebody has to monitor that. If it goes down, I need to start it, right? Then there are so many other things that are, it is an environment, right? It is still part of the IT environment. So environment has to be managed. Now the same applies to human resources, right? So I used to work for a consulting company. They pull in resources, but as soon as the work is over, they dismantle the team. Okay, they right size and quickly build the team that is only required to do the job. So what happens when you have a lot of people, right? And then you do very little work. we end up wasting each other's time, isn't it? Right. And the last one is the last but not the least is that at regular intervals, teams should reflect on how to become more effective. Now, if you are aware of models, at the end of every sprint, what I mean is 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whenever we deliver some value to the customer, we as a team huddle together and see how we can improve ourselves. Now, the most important thing here is it is not only identifying what we need to improve, but also coming out with an action item, right? Because sometimes we are very good at talking as a team, right? We want to do this. Oh, we didn't do this. Everybody comes together. We didn't do this well. We didn't do design well, right? We could have done this to improve the performance, right? Okay, fine. The discussion is over. What are you going to do now? So continuous improvement is not just words of saying that, yeah, we have to do all these things. It's about writing it down, following it up, and then doing it. Now, that is about the key agile principles. I might have missed one or two, but doesn't really matter. But by and large, every agile practices, if you, for example, in future, even if you learn more about it, you can look at these 12 agile principles. You can actually map it back to them, right? Uh, I'm going to take a small pause here and then adjust my screen so that I can talk about the next topic. The team models, a very straightforward topic because I'm not going to get too detailed into this because that itself is a big topic. Is about agile team models, right? Now, by and large, most agile teams within the software engineering space, because that is our focus area, right? If you see, our heading is also around that. Agile software development and practices, but you can apply it in business also, as I told you. By and large, we follow these patterns. One is a Scrum framework, right? Now, as I told you that itself is a separate training course. I'm sure KnowledgeHut is also doing some certification courses on that, but I run my own training program, which is focused on, of course, in partnership with KnowledgeHut, which focus on more practical approaches, which means that I will not spend too much time on unnecessary theories around any of the topics, right? And the examples that you are going to get in those training programs are very, very relevant based on my experience and also the experience of the consultants working in my organization, right? Scrum is basically a more structured framework for agile, which basically helps you to deliver incremental software at regular intervals. At a higher level, they are called as sprints. So a sprint can be a 2-week sprint or a 4-week sprint. But every 2 or 4 weeks, we have to deliver something to the end customer. If you're not delivering it, I know many organizations don't deliver, but there are very valid reasons. It could be because of dependency between other systems. It could be because the infrastructure is not ready. But by and large, you should have a thoroughly tested and reviewed feature at the end of every sprint. The team that does it is called as a Scrum team. Now, every developer or tester, right? We all know that testing industry is also changing a lot. I have spent a considerable number of years in testing, around 10, 11 years, right? I know that as a lot of changes have happened in the software testing industry, also because of agile practices, because a lot of focus is on developers doing the job, right? So, but then there are cases where you have Scrum teams basically have testers. Scrum is very well suited for end-to-end software engineering projects, which follow requirements, design, coding, testing, and review. of course, in deployment, review and deployment. Kanban. Kanban is other model which basically suits a lot of run the teams, right? Infrastructure support teams, right? Application support teams. Those teams it need not follow Scrum because Scrum is quite prescriptive and very specific for engineering teams. You can take a Kanban approach, which is simply monitoring the work in progress. Item comes into the queue. For example, let's take an example. Infrastructure support. A queue item comes into the queue and it becomes a to-do item. Then somebody picks the item, it becomes in progress. Then somebody completes the item, it becomes done. Very simple. You don't have to, because that particular help desk item doesn't have to go through requirements, design, and everything. So Kanban is one model. The other one is a combination of these two called Scrumban, right? Now, for example, I work with a team, engineering team, which does a lot of software engineering activities, but they also have to support their application. Now they ask me, how do I do it? Then we say, okay, fine. For your support, you can use the Kanban model, but for your Scrum, you use the Scrum model. So when you just add them two, it becomes Scrumban, right? It's just a combination of models. Now, Kanban is not just about what I told, but as I told you, I will not dive deeper because it by itself can be a very big topic. It is also about, at a higher level, improving and optimizing the whole thing on a continuous basis. So whatever we are doing, right, continuous improvement is a very important aspect of it, right? If you are not doing it and just doing the same thing again and again and again, then it is a waste. Whether you use Scrum or Kanban or any other model, right, it doesn't make any sense. So improvement is very important. But some teams, when I coach, when I consult, I remember a team some time back when I went and started coaching with them. They told me that uh, we are already Scrum. We are doing everything because we have Sprint. We use a tool, everything. Um, so why do we need you? We don't want to change. You know, the typical problem that happens in an organization, right? When we go, we don't want to change, right? Then what happens fundamentally? Then we go and do a deeper study into the team. We found that they are not using Scrum at all. They are actually using waterfall model with some principles of Scrum. So that is why we call it as an anti-pattern. You have to identify teams within the organization that are really anti-patterns, right? They are not using Scrum or any agile process, but they like to call themselves as a Scrum team, right? So those are some of the team models, right? How many people can be in each team? It can vary, but by and large, I would say less than 10, because small teams are more effective. Then you ask this question, what if I am developing a big product? Simple, divided into multiple Scrum teams, right? That's all we do. Now it is very simply said in a webinar, but when you actually do it, it is very tough, right? When I work on agile transformation projects, making a team completely agile, making a team completely Scrum based. Newer teams are much easier. So one of the approach we take is that if they are, floating a new team, it is very easy. But the teams which are already there, it is actually quite tough because you need to change the mindset of the teams, right? So we are around 45 minutes done, I guess, right? I'm not sure whether I can cover everything, but I will just cover some of the other aspects. But we can follow it up in my next webinar. But whatever we spoke are very essentially core of Agile, right? Very core of Agile, right? The next topic is about mindset. This is my favorite. right? You do anything in Teams, any tools, any technology you bring in, right? You may not be still able to achieve, because I know customers who had come to me said, Ganesh, we have adopted cloud. We have all the best tools. We are using Jira. I'm using DevOps, but still we are not delivering good. I still feel that teams are not collaborating well, right? And that focuses. Now, what happens in most of the organizations? Maybe if some leaders are here, it could be a little offending to you, but this has to be driven from the top. How would you say driven from the top? Is not a top-down approach. Typically, you see that, hey, do it like this, right? We bring in a couple of agile coaches from outside, train the teams, and expect teams to become an agile is not the way. As leaders, you have to exhibit agile mindset. Now, how I can exhibit? If you don't exhibit agile mindset, still your teams will become agile. I'm not saying they won't, but they will not be having a true agile mindset, right? First is self-organized. Every team should be self-organized. Now, what if somebody is not self-organized? What do you mean by self-organized? Simply, right? You know what you are doing. You know what you need to report back. You know when to raise issue when something is not going well, right? Whatever you commit to your team, whatever you agree to your team, whatever you agree to your customer, you do it on time. Unless and until you honor your commitment, you are not self-organized, right? That is the most important thing. You may say, my team is, there is a person in one of the team I coached. He regularly attends all the stand-up meetings, every meetings promptly on time. But when it comes to his work, he never delivers. Now, should I have to consider him self-organized because he's attending all meetings? If I'm a proper agile coach, I will consider that not only that he need to be attending all the meetings, be on time, raise his concerns, be proactive, but also he honors the commitment. Now, the second one is empowerment. And this is exactly where I told the management is very important. We are all used to in agile teams, right? The old ways of working. In many organizations, we call this as new ways of working. We are not even using the word agile in many places. We are calling it as ways of working, because agile has itself become very prescriptive word. But when I say we want to go to new ways of working, right, which means that you do everything that is possible, that is required for the improvement, and deviate and takes you to the next level from your old ways of working. What is our old ways of working? Manager takes complete control of the teams. Teams have to report back to the management, prepare PowerPoint presentation every week, right? Now I will put the question on the reverse. Why should the team come and do it to the management, right? Why not management go and find out from the team what is happening, right? So it's a complete change. So if you don't do that, if you don't really do that, if you don't really exhibit that, expecting the team to be self-organized, empowered is not going to happen, right? The leadership is also changing. The leadership of the past millennium or the past decade is gone. There should be a continuous reinvention of leadership. I recently read a very good book. I will recommend that to everybody if you want to personally improve yourself. The book's name is No Rules, Rules: A Culture of Reinvention, from Reed Hastings of Netflix. Right. It's an excellent book, how a leader should be, right? Our organization culture has to be. Now, you cannot change every aspect of it, right? But are we are we doing some of these things? Are we creating this mindset in the change? Third one is challenging the status quo. A simple example, you might have attended a lot of webinars before. Everybody comes with very attractive presentations, animations, just to attract the audience. But here I am taking you back to the old days of writing things on a whiteboard with the bullet points. Why? Because I believe more than that, the message is most important. What I converse, what I talk is most important, right? Every level, allow your team to challenge the status quo. Status quo means as is model without any improvement, right? Challenging the status quo is very important. As an individual and as an organization, ability to adapt to change. Technically, going to DevOps model. I don't know how many of you are developers. If you're an old school developer, mind you, you have to take care of your unit test. You are in charge of your code. You cannot give your code to someone else saying that a tester will test it. That is not the new way of working, at least as I consult with some very leading multinational companies and banks. Now, different organizations are at different level of maturity, but they are all going in this direction. Now, as a developer, you say, I won't write my unit test. Why should I test? I will give it to the testers, right? Then you are basically you are not fitting in well into the agile team. That is the whole point. So when we talk about the takeaway of this session, right, you can see that everybody has got something to learn, right? Radical candor is feedback. Feedback, straight, transparent, useful, simple feedback to the team members, not only to the team members, but also to your supervisor. That culture is very important. You should not, there is no which game because your subordinate told you something. He told this something against me in a meeting. But the only thing which you need to ensure in radical candor is that how you put across the message. The message should have respect for the other person. That is the most important thing. The last point is failure. Fail fast, fail often, fail early. Without failures, you cannot reinvent. Now, if you foster all these things in yourself as an individual and at an organization level, then you are probably changing the agile mindset of you. I'll take a pause here. I think there are other topics, but which are very, what to say, slightly advanced topics, which I can cover in the next webinar. I will actually open it for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ganesh. Attendees, you can start typing in your questions now. We have the first question from Abhijit. He says we're already doing automations. What will be different with Agile?
Okay, so what automation you're talking about is the most important thing. If you're talking about, say, in a software engineering, test automation or DevOps automation, so that is very important. So if you are doing test automation, I can say test automation is only a very fractional aspect of agile practices. As I already covered, your team should be moving to one of these models, Scrum, Kanban, and not only test automation. There is an area called, it's slightly a topic that I wanted to talk about, but since you asked this question, there is an area called DevOps, right, which talks about end-to-end automation, which I mean is starting from your desktop where the developer writes the code to deployment to production. That is called DevOps, right? And end-to-end automation is important and not just test automation. But I assume you are talking about test automation. Hope I answered the question. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ganesh. No other questions for now. Attendees, I hope you all are able to type in your questions because
I don't see it on the chat because I just opened the chat, but I
not
don't
on the
see.
chat, the questions tab actually. Okay, we have the next question from Vaibhav. He says, what is the difference between agile and scaled agile?
Oh, well, that's a very good question, right? So agile and scaled agile, right? There is no difference between these two, right? Basically, if you want to take agile at an enterprise level, what happens? Say, for example, in one of the banks I worked, we had a IT team of around 3,000 people, right? So it is not enough that only one team changes, right? I need to scale this change across the enterprise, right? Which means that all the teams should move to the agile model. Only then it will benefit the organization. If only one team changes, it will only benefit that product. So most organizations are taking this approach of scaled agile, where they are doing a complete agile transformation. And there are quite a lot of frameworks. For example, you have a framework called SAFe. You have a framework called LESS. There is a model called a Spotify model, right? There is a model called a disciplined agile. You can take any of these scaled agile frameworks, but when you try to move agile at a very large enterprise level, it is called scaled agile. Any other questions?
Yes, now we have many questions flowing in, but it's already 7:58. So Ganesh, are you okay to extend by
I,
5,
I
10
can I can
minutes?
take I can take few minutes as long as the participants are fine, right?
Yes, they
Somewhere we
seem to be
stop,
interested.
take questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next question is, what is the difference between Scrum Master and Agile Coach, with everybody looking for Agile Coach in SM obsolete? Is SM obsolete?
ISM is not obsolete. SM is the most important role. You, for example, I'm an agile coach in one of the uh, agile transformation initiative that I'm currently working on, right? I'm an agile coach for 5 teams, right? My job is basically to provide directions and find out whether they are doing things right? And if you are not doing it properly, what should be the right way to do? Provide some training, handle change resistances, because when you do a transformation, people don't really like the transformation. Not everybody likes, right? Isn't it? Scrum Master is more of a delivery role, right? If you ask me to choose between who is more important to the organization, it's a Scrum Master, because once I complete a agile coaching transformation project, I'm out, right? Or I'm basically there to track how things are going at a very higher level. But Scrum Master is there till the end of the product. And you work very, very closely with the team day in, day out. Scrum Master is the one who solves all the blockers and the who helps in coordination. So that is a difference. Any other questions?
Yes. What is SAFe methodology?
Mhm.
Is Pratik's question.
Uh, Very, very so safe training itself is around 2-3 days. By the way, I'm not safe certified, but I can talk about it, right? So scaled agile, right? When you want to do, as I told you, when you want to do agile transformation at a organization level, at an enterprise level, you have to adopt one of these practices. So a company called Scaled Agile, they came out with their own methodology of how agile can be scaled, right? Creating roles like release train engineers, creating meetings like program increment meetings, PI planning sessions, and how do you create feature teams, right? So now, how do you budget? How do you create value? So they came out with their own model, and that model is widely accepted in some of the organizations, and they have adopted it, right? But however, there are other organizations which they found that safe is not the right way of doing it. Maybe there are other ways to do. As I told you, there are other models like less Spotify. I know one of the banks have gone to the Spotify model. You can possibly Google about it. I don't know whether I can put it on chat. I will try if I can chat. Yeah, I'll just try to chat like Spotify, less disciplined agile, right? You can Google about it, and of course, safe. Now, safe is more popular nowadays, but I know some companies are using other models also. All right. Any other question?
Yes. So we have 6 more questions. Do you want me to read out all the questions first, or do you want to take one by one?
Yeah, I'll take it one by one. I think I'll give a minute for each question, so I will be done in 6
Yes.
minutes.
Have you seen the questions tab, Ganesh?
Okay, I'm seeing it.
Okay. So the next question is Abhijit Jitkar. You can start from there. We
We
have
are
6 questions.
Jitkar, we are already doing automations. What will be different with Agile? I have already
No, so
answered.
those are done. Yeah, those are done. There is another Abhijit's question after Pratik Srivastava, I can see.
How Agile is useful and how it can be implemented in operations teams, right? So as I told you, right, Agile is not about any particular models. It is also about mindset, right? So when you say operations team, right, again, there are two operations. There are IT operations, but operations, say customer service of a bank is actually part of the operations team. Then banks have got back office work. You can use a Kanban model, right, where you can monitor the items in queue. For that, you need to dive deeper into Kanban, look at all process improvements that you can make at each level. The most important thing is where all you can automate it. Now, just go one step further. There are technologies like robotic process automation, right? I know many companies have adopted that. That's like it helps you to automate your processes. If it is an application, software application. So automation, continuous improvement, Kanban. Of course, last but not the least, I'll always emphasize on agile mindset. These 4 things can help you. What are the journey model in agile transformation, right? That's a big topic, but it is all here. As I'll quickly read it out. First, conduct agile health checks of the teams, identify areas of improvement, choose the right agile model, right team structure, coach teams on agile principles, drive agile software engineering practices, implement enterprise agile frameworks, define and collect matrices basically, how we have improved, right? Provide practical approaches to problems. Don't just follow, say, Scrum says like this. So one of the reasons when they hired me for the recent banking project, right, they said, I come from an experience perspective and not really a certified person, right? Most of the questions that were thrown to me was around my experience than really upskilling the team on agile practices, hiring focused on agile skills. If you want to hire in the future, you may want to ask them, have you worked on agile? If it's an existing team, you may want to train them, right? And last but not the least is when you implement a transformation model, you will have a lot of challenges, right? You need a organization change management. Okay, fine. Now, hope I answered this question. Since we spoke about test automation, which is best to use, TDD or BDD for Scrum projects? Okay, so that's again a big topic. First, you need to understand what is TDD, right? TDD is done by developers, right? Unit testing, integration test, written by developers before they actually start the coding itself. That is, you write your test, then you write your code to pass the test. BDD, behavior driven development, in my view, this is my view based on my own experience, is not being properly followed in the industry, right? Because what has become to BDD is behavior driven development has become acceptance testing. automation. That is what is happening, because developers are not getting involved in the BDD process, which by means development itself, that word itself is wrong, right? So I would say developers writing their unit test following TDD, and then testers using BDD technique, like, to write their acceptance test is a good approach. Is it necessary to be from the technical background for being a Scrum Master? More advantageous, right? If you don't understand technology, uh, it is going to be a little challenging for you to work with the technical teams, because day in, day out, they'll be talking about technology. But I really don't want anyone to get demotivated. But as I see it, I'm running a course, a 3-day program in partnership with KnowledgeHut, which talks about technology, all aspects of technology in a bite-sized module, right? You can become a Scrum Master, but I also advise you, why don't you do a technical course? Become a Java programmer for some time, write some Java code. It's easy. It's not that difficult as you think. So understanding technology, I believe, is important if you want to be a Scrum Master for the technical team. Thank you.